friends, it's Heather at Bush Puppy Farm. What do you think? The day that I did the last couple of sleeves, that afternoon, Mike and Aiden came out and they did almost all of the rest of them. There's only 9 left for me to do, so I'm super excited. Today we're not working at the farm though. We've got some stuff to do at the house. We are doing some home renovations, so we're starting to meet with contractors, and that's what we're doing today. So I'm gonna have to be local, but tomorrow we're back out at the farm and I'm hoping I can get the sleeves in, finished. We still need to cement in the final 2 corners, and then I can start stringing the netting and we can get this done. So the storm that we just had yesterday, wrapped up yesterday, that wasn't supposed to be nearly as strong as the previous one. And it was pretty crazy. We ended up getting an inch of rain when they told us we'd only end up probably getting less than a 1/4 inch. We also got hail and high winds. So I came out here to make sure that, oh, and then it went down to 29 degrees Fahrenheit last night. So I came out here because I thought the poor plants, you know, like heavy downpours, high winds, hail, and then freezing temperatures. I mean, they are cold hardy annuals, so they can handle that, and they look absolutely fine this morning. But I was worried about broken stems and things like that, frost damage and stuff like that, but everything's fine. Also, we are now up to almost 180 gallons in the IBC tote. And like I said, we are making major progress thanks to Mike and Aiden on the fencing. So I'm hoping that now that we have about 5 days in front of us of no rain, I don't want the rainy season to be over yet because it's only February and we still need a lot of rain. But these 5 days are a gift. So I'm going to be able to move the compost, get all the direct sowing done. I'm going to try to work on that tomorrow and the next day. I definitely can't do it today because there's literal standing water. Like, it just won't drain. The soil is saturated on most of the path to the back part of the property. And so pushing a wheelbarrow through there, while I can do it, it's going to tear up the ground a whole lot more, and that's going to cause problems in the future. So I try to let that drain. We'll see how it is tomorrow. I can still do other things tomorrow besides wheelbarrow compost out here. And, you know, I can continue to work on the fence, all that kind of stuff. Today, we're going to be working at home. We are going to be doing some pretty major renovations on our home this year, and so we are starting to meet with contractors, and I have a couple meetings today, so we're going to have to work at home. But we're going to be pruning roses. I'm pardoning the seedlings off because I want to try to get those out into the garden tomorrow or the next day. We've got seeds starting to do. I'm going to start to do some spring cleanup, even though it's still early, because that takes a while. And so, yeah, it's going to be a busy day. So right now, I'm leaving the farm. I had to come and get my rose pruning gloves because they're like thick leather. And I need to stop and I'm going to try to get like 5 or 6 bags of wood chips to put in the chicken run because it's just a muddy mess. We've had so much rain. And like I said, the soil is not draining anymore because it's saturated. So I want to give them something dry to stand on. And if I make a big pile of it, they'll enjoy tearing that pile apart as well. And I also need to pick up some prescriptions for Aiden and his migraines. Kid. So I'm gonna do that first, and then we're gonna get back and start work. pumpkins are taken care of. I'm all wet from the from the mulch bags dripping, but that's okay. That big pile, the reason I dumped food on it is that in that food bucket, if it's out in the rain, and yesterday it was out in the rain, it, you know, gets all wet in there and then it becomes this paste and then it just kind of clogs. So I dumped that on top of the wood chips pile. They will eat and scratch, and probably by this evening, that pile of wood chips will be covered the floor there, which is where it's the most muddy. So I think we're good. They're actually really enjoying themselves out there, pecking away. Okay, so next I'm going to tackle the this climbing rose. I have no idea what this variety is. I bought it years ago, and of course that was back when I was much worse at labeling than I am now, if you can believe it. So what I'm going to need to do is hardcore pruning. There's one single bush here and one single bush here. The bottom canes are just bristling with thorns. It's a little bit better up here. I do have really good gloves, so not only do they go higher up my arm, they also are much thicker leather. I can still get poked through them, but it's not as bad. So there's also a whole bunch of hips on here, but the seeds have already started coming out, so they're kind of past their prime at this point. So mostly what I'm going to be doing is taking off, you know, the usual pruning. Is there something dead? Are there crossing branches? And in climbers, there's a lot of crossing branches. Anything that is just kind of in the way, it's not going to produce flowers. The thing about climbing roses is they only flower at the ends of their of these vertical branchings. So if you just have a whole bunch of vertical branches, you're only going to get blooms at the top. So what you need to do is cut back a lot of the verticals, take some of the very loose verticals, the ones that are very pliable, bring them horizontal, weave them into your trellis, and from that horizontal plane, you'll get new vertical shoots that will flower. So it's just a constant cutting back, and they grow so vigorously that you can cut back really hard and not cause any issues with flowering. So that's what I'm gonna do. And I'm probably actually going to start at the bottom here and take off some of these older canes that at this point are just wood, solid wood, and they're only producing verticals that are too stiff to move. Probably going to thin that out. It'll send up new canes from the bottom this year. And then anything that's flexible that I can bring down to more horizontal, I will go ahead and weave that in, and I'll just trim away everything else. So it's going to look very thin, very sparse, and then as the course of the season goes on, it's just going to get lush and full. This season I should be able to completely join it across the top because I have a few verticals that I can weave in, and they'll send up more flowers too. So I'm going to get started. This takes a while. You know, when you're cutting, the only other thing I want to say is when you're trimming roses, you're trimming a lot of things. When you look at where the buds are going, that's how you tell the plant which direction to grow. So for instance, you can see this branch right here. It's got a bud right here, but is growing into the center of the plant. Now, I probably don't want that. It just clogs up the middle here. You don't get a lot of airflow. So when I trim this back, I'm going to trim it back to a bud that is facing outwards so that the new branch will come this way towards us, outwards, as opposed to inwards towards the middle of the plant where there's less airflow and thus more potential for disease. Okay, so hopefully you can see that it's much thinned out. I took a lot from this side here because there's a pathway here, and I also wanted to open this up more here in between. So I really thinned on the sides where if you're walking by, you're gonna get poked. And I'm certain we'll get tons of flowers this year, we always do, and there's a ton of fresh green buds that I've seen already on here. So as they grow, oh, I see one I forgot to get. As it grows through the season, I will continue to weave things through so that it's much more lush, and then I can continue to cut back stuff that I don't want once I get some of those side shoots growing. Okay, since I'm out here, it's cold because the sun's behind a cloud right now. Since I'm out here, I'm gonna go ahead and tackle the cleanup for the pollinator bed. So I let this stuff sit all through the winter because number one, it's still pretty, and even this big giant salvia was still blooming. But it is time for me to cut everything back so that it can reset, and in about a month or so it'll start putting on new growth. So everything's going to get cut back. This giant salvia, this buddleia. I have to be kind of careful with this. I'm going to have to do a little bit of extra work on it. This is a Spanish lavender, and with lavender you definitely want to give it haircuts, but if you cut down into the wood, that kind of won't come back. So I might give this a massive pruning back so it can get a flush. It'll be a smaller bush at that point, but that'll be okay. So all of this stuff, gonna cut it back and pack it all into the green bin, and it'll be look much cleaner in here. I definitely will. So then I'll also come through once I clean it up, and I'll add compost, which is a nice little layer of compost since I have it, to feed the soil more, and then it'll be ready for the spring. It always feels so good to do that, even though it looks very shorn back. So I'm going to show you what I did and explain why I pruned the way I pruned. Okay, so starting over here, these are milkweeds and stuff, and I just cut them back, just grabbed them, cut them in half, and they're fine. They'll come back. I did not trim this lavender because I have missed the window for right now, because you see, I do not want to lose these buds. Oh man, it smells so good when I was over here trimming. So this guy will get a haircut after it flowers. But what I wanted to show you is on this salvia, which it's an individual plant, but it's putting up, you can see, side shoots. I took out a lot of the old wood, which is all in here. And how I could tell that it was old wood is that it's hollow. So if you can see right there, there's literally a hole. Here's fresh wood. You see it's got that nice white, I think that's cambrium. So everywhere that was fresh wood, I kept it, and I cut just above a bud, and it's a little bit harder on these salvias to see where the buds are. Like there's a bud right there. Like if it's already blooming, obviously it's pretty easy to see, but it can be a little more challenging. So the older wood, which was like probably last year and the year before's wood, that came out. Oh, here's one. Here's another example right there, right? So I cut those out, and this will be the last. So this one, this whole stem will have to come out at the end of the year or next spring, because it'll be done. So that's how you prune back these salvias. Now, do you have to prune? No, you can just let it go and leave it. What will happen though is what people always complain to me about when I go do consultations, is that it's just so woody and it's real tall and it only flowers at the top. That's because it hasn't been pruned. So the reason I do this is to push new growth lower down, new fresh growth lower down, and then you can clear out all the dead stuff, the old stuff, and you constantly have a nice cycling, and it keeps the shrub, number one, at a size that you want, and number two, you get more flowers because you have more fresh green growth. Same thing with the buddleia, which is right next door. So here's this buddleia. Now in the past, when these plants were younger, I cut them much lower down. But, you know, with as old as they are now, if I cut too low down, I would be past any new fresh growth. So that's why, you know, that's why it's this size, about 2 feet as opposed to 6 to 8 inches, which I've done in the past. And this is the same idea here. You can see the fresh green stem and an old stem, right? So nothing's going to grow off of this anymore. It's no longer being given nutrients from the plant. So that's how I refresh these guys. This Spanish lavender, I cut back a whole bunch of dead wood here, and I'm going to wait till this flowers because it's actually getting fairly close, and then I'll do a pretty hard prune of that. So that job's done, except that I do need to haul in compost and cover up, give it about 1 inch, the whole bed. It just helps replenish the soil. I might also put down some a little bit of fertilizer, but for the most part, the compost does everything I need it to do. So it's funny because this is so open now, I can see through the whole garden. But I'm really glad I did it now, because we're gonna have even though it looks like it's gonna rain, it's not. We have 5 days where it's dry. So pruning now gives all of these cuts time to heal over, scar up before water gets in there and we have any more freeze-thaw cycles or, you know, traps bacteria and viruses in there. So it's a good time to do it right before a dry spell. Okay, that's gonna have to be it for me today because we're about to meet with a flooring contractor. So I'm gonna go on and sign off, but I hope that you learned some things today. I still have to prune the climbing roses in the cottage garden and clean out that whole cottage garden. Woo, what a huge project that's going to be. Plus move compost back there as well. So there's still quite a bit of work to do here at home. But tomorrow we're going to go back out to the farm and I'm going to try to get the remaining 9 sleeves in. Maybe even dig the holes for the final 2 posts that need to be cemented in. You know, we'll see. But that, and also finally weeding that ranunculus patch. Then I'm hoping that this weekend it'll be a little bit drier. The water will have kind of drained from the soil a little bit and I can go ahead and move all the compost to the back area. But I really want to get that fence up. It feels like the priority right now. So yeah. Oh, and then tomorrow or the next day, whenever I have time, I have to start moving seedlings out here to my home garden. I'm hardening them off now, but they definitely need to go in the soil. Number one, I need those 6-packs and trays, but number two, they're getting really big in their containers and the roots are coming out the bottom. It's time to go in. So I'm excited to do that. It should be a little bit warmer the next couple days, which will be helpful, but I think they'll transition just fine. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you guys have a wonderful time in your garden and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.